You've probably seen those viral videos warning you to stay away from the world's most restricted locations. But they rarely explain the reality of what's waiting behind the barbed wire and the no trespassing signs. Today, we're looking for the truth. What actually happens if you ignore the warnings? What happens if you step onto the forbidden sands of North Sentinel Island? What happens when the arrows start flying and the local tribe defends their total isolation? What happens if you try to scale the granite walls of the United States Bullion Depository at FortKnox? How does the US Army respond when the world's most famous vault is breached? What happens if you somehow get inside humanity's backup vault in Svalbard? What happens if you sneak into the redwood shadows of Bohemian Grove, or cross one of the world's most dangerous borders in the Korean DMZ? Most channels stop at "Don't go there," but here on Trust, we're taking you one step further. We're uncovering the exact security protocols and the terrifying consequences of entering places you're not supposed to. Because while some of these locations will get you arrested, one of them could start a global conflict. Now let's begin the full investigation into these forbidden zones. What happens if you step onto North Sentinel Island? It's a question. That sounds simple, but the answer has made this small island one of the most feared and protected places on Earth. And unlike many restricted locations, we don't have to imagine what might happen, because people have actually tried. Located in the Bay of Bengal, North Sentinel Island is home to the Sentinelese, an indigenous tribe believed to have lived in isolation for thousands of years. The Sentinelese reject contact with the outside world. They do not welcome visitors, and they have made that clear for decades. Because of the risks to both outsiders and the tribe, India strictly prohibits unauthorized access to the island. A protected exclusion zone surrounds North Sentinel. Entering without permission is illegal, but despite the warnings, some people have still tried, and one case shocked the world. In 2018, a 26-year-old American named John Allen Chow decided to visit North Sentinel Island. He knew the island was restricted, he knew outsiders were not welcome, and he knew previous encounters had ended badly. But he went anyway. Chow hired local fishermen to take him close to the island. From there, he used a small boat to approach the shore. As he got closer, members of the Sentinelese appeared on the beach. According to notes later recovered, Chow attempted to communicate with them, but the response was immediate. The Sentinelese confronted him. He retreated, but he returned again, and then again. On his final attempt, he stepped onto the island. It would be the last decision he ever made. John Allen Chow was killed shortly after reaching the island. The incident made international headlines, but what happened next is just as important. Authorities never recovered his body, not because they didn't know where he was, but because entering the island again would have placed more lives at risk. The Indian government decided not to launch a recovery mission. The danger to rescue teams was simply too great, and the law protecting the island remained unchanged. So, what happens if you enter North Sentinel Island? The answer is surprisingly straightforward. First, you're breaking Indian law. Second, you're entering a territory where outsiders are not welcome. And third, you're putting yourself in a situation where help may not be able to reach you. This isn't a place protected by walls or cameras or armed guards. It's protected by isolation and by a tribe determined to preserve its way of life. On North Sentinel Island, the greatest danger isn't being arrested. It's surviving long enough to be arrested. But while North Sentinel Island relies on isolation to keep people out, our next location relies on something entirely different. Layers of security, military protection, and enough gold to make it one of the most heavily guarded places on Earth. Fort Knox, sitting in the heart of a Kentucky military base. This fortress houses over 147 million ounces of the world's gold. It is the ultimate restricted zone. To get inside, you'd have to bypass an elite federal police force and a vault door so thick it can withstand a nuclear blast. No single person holds the code. It has guarded everything from the Declaration of Independence to the Hungarian crown jewels. Whether by prehistoric arrows or modern steel, some secrets are never meant to be reached. Two worlds, two extremes, one goal, absolute protection. What would you dare to uncover? Chapter 2. Investing in the secrets of the world's most guarded facilities. What happens if you try to enter the most secure facility on Earth? Could you actually reach the vault, looking into the lock? Could you see the gold? Or would security stop you long before you got anywhere near it? To answer that, we need to understand what FortKnox really is. FortKnox is one of the most famous secure facilities in the world. Located in Kentucky, it stores a massive portion of the United States gold reserves. The facility is encased in layers of cold, hard granite. For decades, it has been a global symbol of security itself. The phrase, "as secure as Fort Knox," is in everyday language. But just how secure is it? Looking into the laser heat, the phrase, "as secure as Fort Knox," has entered our common language. But just how secure is it? The answer begins long before you ever reach the vault. The facility is surrounded by multiple layers of protection: restricted zones, security checkpoints, surveillance systems, and thousands of armed military personnel on constant patrol. Surveillance systems and armed military personnel. By the time an intruder thinks they've arrived at Fort Knox, security already knows they're there. Unlike the movies, there is no realistic scenario where someone casually walks up to the vault door. The real challenge isn't opening the vault, it's getting close enough to even see it. And history has shown what happens when people try. Every time, the result is the same. Every single trespass attempt results in the same outcome: detection, interception, and immediate federal detention. If someone attempted to force their way in today, military personnel would respond immediately. Fort Knox isn't designed to react at the last moment. The vault itself is only one part of the system. The real security lies in everything surrounding it. It's designed to prevent intruders from reaching their objective. So what happens if you try to enter Fort Knox? You don't reach the gold, you don't reach the vault. Military response teams would respond to any breach immediately, and you almost certainly don't make it very far. The truth is simple: nobody casually walks into Fort Knox. The situation would quickly become a federal security matter. The vault itself is only one part of the security system. Security stops them long before they ever get close. Fort Knox protects a nation's wealth. The real security lies in everything surrounding it. A symbol of economic power that has lasted for nearly a century. The future of humanity's food supply, deep inside the Arctic Circle. But our next location protects something even more valuable. The future of humanity's food supply, hidden in the deep Arctic. The ultimate backup for life on Earth, safe and secure. What happens if you enter humanity's backup plan? Hidden deep inside a frozen mountain, hundreds of miles from the nearest major city, sits one of the most important vaults on Earth. Not because it stores gold, not because it hides government secrets, but because it protects something every human being depends on: food. This is the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, often called the Doomsday Vault, built deep inside a mountain on a remote Arctic island between mainland Norway and the North Pole. The facility stores backup copies of seeds from around the world, millions of them: rice, wheat, corn, and thousands of other crops that humanity relies on every day. Think of it as a global backup drive. If war, natural disasters, climate events, or disease ever destroy crops in one part of the world, these seeds could help restore them. In a way, this vault isn't protecting the past, it's protecting the future. But that raises an interesting question. What happens if someone enters without permission? Unlike Fort Knox, the seed vault isn't surrounded by military checkpoints. And unlike North Sentinel Island, there are no tribes defending it. But don't mistake that for a lack of security. Because every person entering the facility is known, documented, and authorized. Access is tightly controlled, and unauthorized visitors are not welcome. In fact, only a limited number of people are granted access to the storage areas. The seeds belong to the institutions and countries that deposited them, and strict procedures govern who can enter and why. If an unauthorized person somehow gained access to restricted areas, security protocols would immediately come into effect. Authorities would investigate. The individual would be removed. And depending on the circumstances, detention and criminal consequences could follow. The reason for this protection is simple. The seed vault isn't valuable because of what's inside today. It's valuable because of what it could mean tomorrow. Every container stored here represents years of agricultural history, scientific research, and a safeguard against future crises. Damage or interference could affect resources that nations around the world depend upon. So what happens if you enter humanity's backup plan? You won't uncover hidden treasures. You won't discover secret experiments, but you will quickly attract the attention of the people responsible for protecting one of the world's most important collections. The facility is monitored, access is controlled, and unauthorized entry triggers an immediate response. Entering the seed vault won't start a war, but it will immediately attract attention from the people protecting humanity's agricultural future. And while the seed vault protects the future of food, our next location protects something far more exclusive: Bohemian Grove. What happens if you sneak into Bohemian Grove? Hidden among some of California's tallest redwood trees lies one of the most private properties in America. A place that has attracted decades of rumors, speculation, and curiosity. And for many people, the mystery itself raises a question: what would happen if you actually got inside? Bohemian Grove is a private retreat located in Northern California. Every year, invited guests gather here for meetings, discussions, and events away from public attention. Over the years, the guest lists have included business leaders, politicians, and influential figures. That exclusivity has naturally attracted attention, and where there is secrecy, there is curiosity. For decades, outsiders have wondered what happens inside these woods. Some theories are reasonable, others are far more extreme. But regardless of what people believe, one fact remains unchanged. The property is private, and unauthorized visitors are not allowed. Security here is unlike any other location. Unlike North Sentinel Island, nobody is waiting on the beach with spears. Unlike FortKnox, there are no military checkpoints visible from the road. And unlike the Seed Vault, there are no priceless agricultural resources stored underground. Instead, Bohemian Grove relies on something much simpler: privacy and security. The property is monitored, access is restricted, and security personnel patrol the area. Throughout the years, journalists and activists have attempted to enter without authorization. Most never get very far. Security personnel typically identify trespassers early. Security personnel identify trespassers long before they reach sensitive areas. And once discovered, removal is swift. The exact outcome depends on the circumstances. But unauthorized entry can lead to trespassing violations and detention. In some cases, it leads to arrest. The protection is taken very seriously. The people responsible for protecting the property take that responsibility seriously. So what happens if you sneak into Bohemian Grove? The truth is less dramatic. You don't uncover secret world-changing plans or gain access to powerful leaders. Most likely, you get noticed, stopped, and escorted out. Getting inside is much harder than many people imagine. The mystery remains. While this location was protected by privacy, our final destination is far more dangerous. 2 nations, 2 militaries, and one of the most heavily guarded borders on Earth. The Korean DMZ is one of the most heavily guarded places on Earth. This is the Korean DMZ. What happens if you cross the world's most dangerous border? For most borders, crossing into the wrong country might result in a fine, questioning, or deportation. But here, a single step can trigger a military response. Because this isn't an ordinary border. This is the Korean Demilitarized Zone, better known as the DMZ, stretching roughly 250 kilometers across the Korean peninsula. The DMZ separates North Korea and South Korea. Despite its name, it is one of the most heavily militarized areas in the world. Guard towers, patrol routes, surveillance systems, and military personnel are constantly monitoring the area. For decades, this border has symbolized one of the world's longest-running geopolitical standoffs. And because of that, even a small incident can quickly attract international attention. Most visitors who come near the DMZ do so under strict supervision. Special tours operate in designated areas. Rules are clear, movement is controlled, and crossing the border is absolutely prohibited. But what happens if someone ignores those rules? Unlike our previous locations, the consequences here aren't just about trespassing. Because the moment someone crosses the border, military units are immediately alerted to the crossing. Information can spread around the world within hours. History has shown exactly how quickly incidents at the DMZ can become global news. In recent years, several unauthorized border crossings have attracted worldwide media attention within hours. News organizations began reporting the unfolding situation immediately. Governments responded, and diplomats became involved. What started as a single person's decision quickly became an international event. For the individual involved, detention is highly likely. The exact outcome depends on where the crossing occurs and which authorities take control of the situation. But one thing is certain: crossing the border is not treated as a simple mistake, because every incident carries the potential to affect relations between 2 nations. So what happens if you cross the world's most dangerous border? Military forces respond immediately. Detention becomes likely, carries severe risks, including being fired upon, immediate arrest, imprisonment, or becoming a political hostage and global news. Because at the DMZ, even a single person can create consequences far beyond themselves. At the DMZ, one wrong step isn't just trespassing. It can become an international incident. From isolated islands, to military vaults, to secret gatherings, and heavily guarded borders, these places aren't restricted by accident. And while each location is different, they all share one thing in common. The moment you enter, someone notices. And now, the consequences begin. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Trust for more stories exploring the world's most fascinating mysteries.